I ain't mean, I just focused. All right, so this week on Explicitly Pro-Life, I'm going to talk about Kanye West. Hey everyone, it's Kristan Hawkins. Welcome to this next episode of Explicitly Pro-Life. Today I'm going to talk about why Kanye West is right. So as you know, and well, maybe you don't know if you haven't been on the internet in 2 weeks, but Kanye West released a new album called Jesus is King. It's like a gospel rap album. Kanye has said he's converted to Christianity. He's an active Christian. He's been holding these Sunday services in Cody, Wyoming, which is one of my favorite places in the whole world, and other locations across the country. And so he released this new album, and it's actually Christian. And it's really good. I downloaded for the first time ever my first rap album to listen to Kanye West, and I've been listening to it nonstop. And this is a pretty big thing for me to say because I'm a huge Dave Matthews fan. So it's hard for me to I'm very brand loyal, but it is an amazing album, and he's truly a gifted artist. But obviously, this didn't come without controversy. He's a mainstream Hollywood rap artist guy who's now said he's, going to use his art, his craft, to glorify God. So that's controversial. But then Kanye comes out and speaks out against abortion. So after his album was released, he gave it was like a 2-hour long interview, and he actually came out against Plan B and abortion, and he's right. So the quote is, "Come on, man, this is a free man talking. Democrats has voting for Democrats with food stamps for years. What you are talking about, guns in the 80s, I don't know what he's talking about there. Taking the fathers out of the home, yep. Plan B, lowering our votes and making us abort our children." Very pro-life. So that's actually more controversial in a lot of circles than saying you're Christian is to come out against Plan B and to come out against abortion. And I've been listening to the song Sella on repeat. That's my favorite song on this album. That's why I quoted at the beginning, I just focused. I think I want a t-shirt about that. I think my whole staff would agree. But there's also another great line in that song. It says, "We got the product, we got the tools, we got the minds, we got the youth." We definitely have the youth. I love that. That should be like a new tagline of Students for Life right there. We got the product, we got the tools, we got the minds, we got the youth. I love it. Okay. So everyone's kind of freaking out that he's pro-life. Kanye is pro-life. Plan B, the makers of Plan B, the drug actually came out after this statement saying, wait a minute, he's comparing Plan B to abortion, and Plan B isn't an abortion drug. And, NARAL and Planned Parenthood, all those people jumped on this because obviously Kanye West is one of the biggest, culture drivers that we have. He and his wife, they have tens of millions of followers online. So this is what I really want to talk about. And there's been a whole bunch of within the Christian world of, is Kanye really a Christian? Should we be supporting an artist like this? I would say absolutely listen to the lyrics. They are biblically based. They are amazing. I challenge you actually to listen to Sella, that my favorite song on the album, and not smile and not praise God, because it's an amazing song. And it shows just how God can use every single one of us to advance his kingdom. And I think if you're someone who is concerned whether or not Kanye is going to be a good enough Christian, or if he's really a good enough Christian, I think you can look at the Bible at all of the conversions, Saul or David, all these people that God used to accomplish his kingdom, to bring his kingdom to us, to bring his son and his son's ministry to our world. You can see that God uses all of us, even those who are sinners and have sinned a lot and will probably sin again. So will Kanye West be the most perfect Christian ever? None of us will be the most perfect Christian. Will he probably mess up? Yep, he will. But I think it's something we should definitely celebrate. We should be talking about, and we should be praising God for this miracle that this happened. But That's a different podcast topic. What I want to get into, and explicitly pro-life, is about this statement about Plan B and abortion, because I think this is an important opportunity that our pro-life movement has right now, with Kanye West actually calling out Plan B, calling out abortion. And I think this is something we need to talk about. It's definitely something that I've noticed is a challenge, because we have so many Christian young women who are using hormonal birth control, but yet have no idea of the potentially abortifacient effects of that hormonal birth control. And I know this is like an awkward subject to talk about, and it's not, to be honest with you. This isn't something I suggest we lead with in the pro-life movement. I think the first thing we need to do in the pro-life movement is make sure people agree with us and understand why aborting a child in the womb moments before he or she is born is immoral wrong. And I think we have to work our way backwards, because I think it's easier to start talking about the third trimester abortions. Then we talk about the second trimester abortions. And then we have to talk about the first trimester abortions. Because to be honest, human beings, it's easier for them to relate to that baby who's 36 weeks than that baby who's 10 weeks, and that baby who's 5 weeks, that baby who's only a couple hours old. That new human being who has a unique genetic code, who's never existed before and will never exist again, they may not look like us, right? They're small. They're a few cells. The cells are rapidly growing and multiplying, and pretty soon a heart will begin to beat, and brain waves will begin. But it's harder for us to see ourselves in those newly formed human beings, in those embryos and those zygotes. And this is a challenge that I've seen time and time again within the Christian community, I'm not even talking about the broader culture of saying, well, I'm pro-life, but I think hormonal birth control is okay. And to be honest with you, this is controversial, because I do know pro-lifers who feel this way. And I became pro-life. I didn't see anything wrong with using hormonal birth control, and it kind of made sense to me of, if you're going to reduce abortions, if you want to save lives, and if people were just using birth control who are having premarital sex, or who aren't in a place in their life where they can feel like they can take care of a child, that's going to stop a child from being created. Therefore, that's good. But the reality is that's not really what happens with hormonal birth control. Just some context of what Plan B is. Plan B is that morning after pill, they call it. You can get it at Walgreens and Rite Aid and Walmart's. It's a birth control pill. It's a hormonal birth control pill, just like the pill. It's about 11 times more powerful than the birth control pill, but it has pretty much the same mechanism that the hormonal birth control pill uses. And most of the hormonal birth control, the Depo-Provera shot and the patch, other hormonal birth controls. Because what happens is with Plan B, let me back up. So what happens with hormonal birth control, right? So the goal is that the egg doesn't get released from the ovary. That's the goal, to stop ovulation from occurring. If ovulation doesn't occur, fertilization can't happen and new life can't be created. However, we all know someone who's been on birth control who got pregnant. We know breakthrough ovulation occurs. We know that birth control doesn't fully stop ovulation. Like, it happens, and you have to take especially if you're on a hormonal pill, you have to take that pill at the same time every day. You have to make sure the pill temperature doesn't change beyond certain degrees. You actually have to be very, very consistent, which few women are. Like, I couldn't do it. I have a pill I'm supposed to be taking for a medical issue, and I always forget to take it. And I have it like right next to my toothbrush, and I forget to take it. I would be terrible at that. So that's what's supposed to happen. But we also know the makers of the pill have admitted this. You can actually see this in the big instruction guide you get that's like folded up real small, and it's all real fine print if you read it. One of the third mechanism of the birth control pill is that if ovulation does occur and if fertilization happens, which we know most times the fertilization occurs in the fallopian tube. That's when sperm, and egg unite. And that's when the unique whole living human life comes into existence. A new set of DNA is created. That human life has to travel from the fallopian tube into the woman's uterus to implant into the uterine lining, where the child will be nourished, where the placenta will start to grow, where the child will live for the next 9 months of his or her life. What we know and what the makers of the birth control pill have admitted is that if breakthrough ovulation occurs, if fertilization happens, right, if human life is created, what happens is that hormonal pill can make the womb inhospitable to life. It won't allow the embryo or the zygote to attach to the uterine lining, causing an early abortion because the child can't attach, the child can't be nourished, the child will be flushed out of the woman. That's an early abortion. Now, we don't know how often it occurs because it's happening inside of women, and we don't really have good stats on this, but we know it's a possibility. This is why at Students for Life, for example, internally within our organization, we're an ecumenical organization. We're actually not even a religious organization. We're made up of Catholics, of Protestants, and we have some non-believers who've been on staff from time to time. We're a pretty diverse group. But one thing we do, what we do within the organization is we ask that all of our employees, no matter the religious background, agree not to use any drug or any device like an IUD that can potentially cause an abortion if they're sexually active. And so to me, it's really important that we're consistent on this, and we want to make sure, and we've written it in such a way where it doesn't matter if an employee is an atheist or agnostic or Catholic or Protestant. Everyone should be able to agree on this subject. We don't take, as an organization, we do not take a stance on barrier method contraceptives, so like spermicide, diaphragms, condoms. I'm a Catholic, but not everyone in the organization is Catholic, so there's differing views on barrier method contraceptives. So we know this is the case with hormonal birth control. Well, Plan B, being that it is hormonal birth control, just 11 times more powerful and 11 times more dangerous, Plan B can also be then abortifacient. Because that's what it does. Now, if and I always tell students on campuses this because they seem, it's like deer in headlights. You don't have to believe me on this. You can go to Google and type in Plan B box and go to Google Images and get a picture of the back of the Plan B box, or you can go to Walgreens or Rite Aid and do this the same. On the back of that Plan B box, in big bold font, the bottom, the box I have, it's on the bottom left. It'll say, will not harm an existing pregnancy. Meaning if you're pregnant, it's not going to cause an abortion. Your baby's going to be fine. That's what the makers are saying, right? In wake of these comments from Kanye West, the new Christian convert, which is amazing. It's this huge miracle, by the way, that I think we need to be celebrating. I don't know how you don't believe in God, because this is a miracle and we should be celebrating this, but another topic. But on the same box, on the right side, bottom right side, and way smaller font, it says may prevent implantation of a fertilized egg. And I'm not doing it directly, but it's essentially says that. I think it may prevent the implantation uterine lining of the fertilized egg. Now, what's a fertilized egg? And we hear this on campuses all the time. And this is what the abortion industry is infamous for, of using words to their advantage, right? Of changing words around, making them sound, less scary. We hear that. It's not an abortion. This is a legal procedure. We're advancing reproductive freedom. Oh no, you're ripping apart babies in the womb, right? That doesn't sound so good. This is another one of those terms, fertilized egg, because if you Google fertilized egg, what comes up? Zygote, embryo. They're trying to make the claim when they use the word fertilized egg that it's still a part of the woman's body. But the very fact that word fertilized is in there means it's no longer part of the woman's body. It's not simply a part. It's a whole, right? Because at the moment of conception, when sperm and egg unite, and I've had to explain this at like Ivy League schools to people, it still blows their minds. It's a stunning indictment of the failure of our educational system. When sperm and egg unite, a unique DNA code comes into an existence. A person that's never existed before, will never exist again, comes into an existence. That's conception. That's when a unique living human being comes into existence. And you can call that human being fertilized egg. You can call that human being zygote or embryo, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't change what that new human is. You didn't, Scott Klusendorf says, you didn't come from a zygote. You didn't come from an embryo or a fetus. You once were one, right? These are stages in a human being's development. For if you want to use the word fertilized egg, you want to use the word blastocyst, if you want to use the word zygote, embryo, fetus, infant, toddler, adolescent, these are stages in a person's life. But they're using this term fertilized egg to make people think, oh, it doesn't harm an existing pregnancy. Now, you think, how can they get away with it? Well, let's talk about something else. In 1965, the American College of OBGYNs, ACOG, changed the definition of pregnancy. Most people don't know this. They had to change the definition of pregnancy because of birth control and because of IVF. Mostly they changed it because of IUDs, but also IVF. Because if you think about how IVF happens, right? We can talk about that in a little bit. But so 1965, the definition of pregnancy was changed from conception, when egg and sperm unite, when that unique DNA code comes into existence, to implantation. This is how they're getting away by saying it doesn't harm an existing pregnancy, because they say pregnancy doesn't begin until the new human being implants into the uterine lining. It's not abortion if it happens before that point. So Kanye is right. Plan B is dangerous. Plan B is like an abortion. It can cause an abortion. It's an abortifacient drug. Now, what Kanye probably doesn't know, because I know he has children who were conceived in IVF, and this would be a discussion I'd like to have with him. This is a hard discussion to have. This is the challenge with IVF, right? This is how human beings are being created in petri dishes, in labs. They're taking eggs from mom, combining with the sperm of dad or the sperm donor that they picked out of a book. They're creating new human life in a petri dish. Oftentimes, then they're using eugenics because they're scanning those embryos for certain genetic abnormalities like cystic fibrosis, like Down syndrome. Then, or if the mom or dad want a boy or not, doesn't want a girl, they scan those embryos. They discard the embryos or donate those embryos that they are less desirable to science. They freeze the other good embryos, and then they'll implant some embryos into the mother and hope that those embryos will implant and a pregnancy will form. That's what happens during IVF. Now, this is another controversial thing. I've met many Christians who have simply never thought about what happens in IVF. And they say, well, IVF's great because it makes babies and we're all about babies. We all want babies and we want healthy families and we want people who want to have children to be able to have children, of course. But we have to ask ourselves, what happens in IVF? What happens in IVF? There was just a case this week, actually, where a judge ruled that frozen embryos, frozen human beings that a mom and dad created that were frozen in a lab had to be disposed of because the mom and dad got divorced and those were considered marital property. So those human beings are now going to be, they were first frozen. Now they're going to be thrown away because mom doesn't want them anymore. Can you see how messed up that is? Because now we're classifying these human beings as our property. They're our property to dispose of how we see fit, to use how we want to use them. So yes, I know I went off on tangents about IVF, but I think it kind of all goes together. This is a hard issue to talk about. I know there's going to be people who have questions. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure if you have a question, you put in comments, or you can always message me on Instagram. I'm Kristan Hawkins. You can message me on Instagram if you have specific questions, because this is a difficult subject. I know a lot of us may have used birth control at one point or might have been on birth control. Our friends might have been conceived in IVF. And so I know I'm saying a lot of things that can be very shocking and they can be hard to hear. But that's one of the hard things about being pro-life, right? Is that we're called to know the truth and we're called to tell that truth. And we have to be philosophically consistent. We can't say that all human beings have an equal right to life except if they were created in a petri dish. We can't do that. It would be easier if we could. People would probably like us better. But we can't do that. It's why when we talk about abortion in cases of sexual assault, of why we say nothing's really changed. There's nothing that we can say that's going to strip the humanity from that preborn child. No matter how much of a monster his or her dad, his or her father might be, that child still has unique value and still has that right to exist. No matter the crimes of the parents, no matter their crimes. And that's hard. Like on college campuses, and I often get asked about sexual assault. How do you feel about abortion and sexual assault? And I can't imagine a worse thing to happen to my daughter than to be sexually assaulted and then to conceive and not only be forced upon sexually, but then to be forced to become a mother. But we have to be consistent that either at the moment of conception, a unique whole living life comes into existence that never existed before and will never exist again, and has innate worth, innate value, dignity, and has the same right to life as you and I, or it doesn't. We can't start picking and choosing based on circumstances. Circumstances don't change the very basic facts. So Kanye West was right when he mentioned and compared Plan B to abortion. Plan B can cause an early abortion. I know I never thought I'd be doing a podcast, praising Kanye West for being this person to start this conversation. But thank you, Kanye, for starting this discussion. This is something we need to talk about. We have to be able to have this conversation. Not only do I think that, he has the potential, and he's probably made a lot of Christians this week, the past 2 weeks. Kanye has done an incredible job of getting people to, reconsider their faith. I was reading an article of saying that searches for what do Christians believe in, what is Christianity, have skyrocketed on Google since the release of Kanye's album. It just shows you the potential and the power we can have for the kingdom when all of us use our gifts. No matter how much of a sinner we may have been or may continue to be, God can use each and every one of us to speak truth and to proclaim the good news that his son is risen and died for our sins so we may live in heaven with him, that we may be forgiven, that we will have redemption, right? So I'm excited. I'm super excited that Kanye West is a new Christian. I'm super excited that he's using his gifts that God's given him to advance the kingdom of heaven. And I'm really excited that he's forcing a conversation that we need to have. And that, quite honestly, we need to talk about more in the pro-life movement. Like I said, I don't lead with this argument on college campuses. I don't talk about Plan B. I don't talk about birth control. It usually comes up when you're having a prolonged discussion, because I do think we need to focus on making sure that college students or anybody who says that they're pro-choice starts to agree with us that the 9-month-old child in the womb has rights. And I think we work our way back. But I do think this is something we have to be consistent about. It's something we have to know how to talk about, because you are going to be asked as a pro-life advocate how you feel about hormonal birth control, how you feel about Plan B. And I think we need, and I think it also speaks to the abortion industry and how time and time again, the abortion industry uses semantics, uses a word choice to confuse and to lie and to manipulate. And that's exactly what they're doing with Plan B. That's exactly what the maker of Plan B has been doing. So make sure you look into this, research it, message me. I could be happy to give you more details, more resources when you have these conversations. But this is something we've got to talk about. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope you tell everybody to make sure to subscribe to Explicitly Pro-Life and spread the word. I'm getting a lot of really great feedback lately about the podcast as I'm out on campuses and I'm out community speaking. So that feels really good to know that people are listening and they're enjoying the podcast. But make sure you spread the word so we get other people tuned in, getting this information, and that we make Explicitly Pro-Life the best pro-life podcast, and one that's equipping pro-life grassroots leaders across the country to engage and to have meaningful dialogue and to produce change, i.e. abolish abortion. Thanks, guys.